Boy George singing his smash hit, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? Now, Boy George was someone that Leigh had read about when he was growing up as a fashion-obsessed teenager in Australia. They soon crossed paths, and Boy George became a frequent visitor to Taboo, the notorious nightclub that Leigh created. Taboo the nightclub also became Taboo the stage musical, for which Boy George not only wrote the music and lyrics, but also played the part of Leigh Bowery. Here he is describing their first encounter.
So the first time I saw Leigh, he was doing this Indian look, but he had like his bum out. I remember sort of saying, oh, he's got his bum out. And then, you know, it was sort of quite, in a way, a lot braver than what I was doing, because I was like, oh, I'd never get my bum out. I'd never show my body. And it was like, there was no embarrassment. He wasn't cool. He was absolutely, he was a disruptor, you know, total. Taboo was a den of iniquity. It was very drug-fueled. Everyone was off their nuts. And if you turned up at Taboo and had drugs, you were probably likely to get in, whatever you looked like. If you turned up looking fabulous and you had no drugs and nobody knew you, you probably got turned away. But if you were some roughneck with a bag of drugs, they let you in. It wasn't enough just to look a certain way. There had to be some kind of weird reason as to why you got in, you know. And obviously, I always got in. So
Obviously.
You knew if Leigh was somewhere, it was going to be fun.
Right. So were people sort of awaiting the arrival of, you know, on a night out? Did you get that sense that when you walked into a room or Leigh walked into a room, that the room was, you know, slightly gagged and like, oh, they're here?
Absolutely. There's a lot of nudging. You know, you kind of relied on that in a way. Do you know what I mean? That was important. You know, it was like there was a real currency in being noticed, you know. I think the funniest times were like at Kinky Galinky, when Leigh would sort of turn up in roller skates and, you know, literally just push people over. He would literally go across the dance floor at alarming speed. He was huge. He didn't care about if he hit people. You know, it was like, he almost kind of liked that. You know, he was quite antagonistic.
Right.
I think Leigh wanted to be original. I mean, I remember once coming out of this bar in Wardour Street with Leigh, and he was really, really, really dressed up like the most extreme, you know, with the sort of, you said that shaving foam kind of weird thing, and then the eye plastered down and whatever. And I remember a sort of gang of real rough kids walked towards us, and they just got out of the way because Leigh wasn't something you could really explain. So, you know, if somebody could identify what you were, they could punch you. You're a puff, you're this, you're that. With Leigh, it was almost impossible to know what he was because it was so outrageous.
How did that like rub off on you, being around someone like that?
Massively. I'd already been the big pop star. So I'd been through this experience of being signed because I was so outrageous and different, and then being suppressed by the music industry. Don't do that. Do this, you know, and there was a lot of arguing all the time, and as there always is with all artists. The original version of Taboo was quite difficult because everyone was like, don't make it too gay, don't do this, don't do that. And of course, everyone in the musical was a raving homosexual. So, you know, Marilyn, Philip, me, Leigh Bowery, it was really hard to kind of...
quite gay, yeah. It's like...
very gay.
Yeah.
And it was a different time, and there was a lot of pressure to dumb it down a little bit. I'm sure Leigh would have hated it. He would have liked the fact that he was in it, but I think he would have sort of hated the sort of the way that we had to kind of suppress certain things about it. He wouldn't have liked that. When I was doing Taboo, when you put those clothes on, something happened. Because it's not like putting on some sort of garment from, you know, Vivienne Westwood or Yohji Yamamoto. This was like mind-altering, body-altering. And the makeup and everything, you know, was just so transformative. And you almost became freer. And, you know, being around Leigh, it really rubbed off on you. I think this is quite important. So before he died, he was very clear with Nicola about his legacy. He said, I want to be in the Tate. I don't want to be in the V&A. I want to be in the Tate. He was very clear that he wasn't fashion. He was art. But I have to say, nobody does it like Leigh did it. There's just something about his body shape, his size, his personality, and his thinking that made it very unique. So even when someone doing a Leigh sort of thing, it's never quite the same.
You can do this. You can do this. Let me help you get through